Oh, hello, Boyan. Are you maybe busy right now? Cause I need to ask you a question.
Yeah, I'm doing some work right now. What do you want?
I know you took your friends out on the yacht the other day, and I didn't kind of get an invite. I was wondering how I could build out a network like yours, cause you know you had a lot of really rich people on the boat.
I didn't invite you because you're a fucking loser. And if you want to build a network, bro, just go out and just make friends like a normal person. It's not that hard. Go away.
But I really don't know where to start. Can you please teach me, please?
Fuck's sake, fine. But I'm only gonna teach you this once, so you better listen up. All right, so as you guys know, at this point, I have a pretty extensive network, basically globally, right? On screen, you can see some of my friends who are like, these are just guys with like a bit of public clout, right? Obviously, there's Charlie Morgan, my boy Daniel, Samir, Will, Musa. They're all my friends, right? And these are just guys with some clout attached to them. I obviously have others that are way more private. But you might be wondering essentially like how I actually built my entire network and my friendship groups, etc., and how I was able to curate and really like network and learn from everyone, right? So I'll kind of break this down in this video for you guys about a guide to making friends, but doing it so in a very particular and a productive way. Because a lot of people, you know, are not very picky when it comes to having friends. And obviously the saying goes, right? You are the average of the 5 people that you spend the most time with. So making sure you're spending time with the right people is really important. And people that I'm friends with also really understand that, right? So let's kind of dive into it, and I'll kind of go over the main things that I was able to really like summarize of how I built my circle. And hopefully you guys can kind of learn from that a little bit, so that if you guys want to make friends with millionaires or whatever to further your own careers, this is how to do it. And I'll break these down into basically like 6 different buckets and what each bucket means. So starting with the first one, the biggest thing is honestly, when it comes to like making friends with people who are especially ahead of you, is that no one likes feeling used ever. Just think about it, right? Like if I know that this person, let's say, doesn't make any money, for example, right? I'm gonna be more cautious because I'm like, okay, it opens up avenues for them to take advantage of, let's say, my resources, for example, right? So to avoid this thing of making someone that you want to be friends with feeling like they're being used, pay for things, that's really important. Like you have to buy your seat at the table. You have to. I don't care if, you know, you only have $200 in your bank account and the dinner costs 100, just get it, right? Like it's not that deep. And the second thing is, to prevent someone from feeling like they're being used, you have to give more and you have to give first. That's the biggest thing. You have to give first and then give more. Because if you don't do that, again, they could feel like they're being used, especially if they're more ahead of you and they have more to give you than you have to give them. Give first, bro. Be generous. Generosity is actually a huge virtue I've found. Like, I'm pretty generous with not only like my team, clients, friends, whatever. I've just adopted a way more generous attitude in life because I've kind of found that the more I give, the more I get anyways, just because goodwill compounds faster than what you can invest. Just because goodwill compounds way faster than what you're putting in. Because if you make one good impression on an individual, you could potentially get access to their entire pool of business or entire network or entire circle. Right? So giving first and just focusing on providing the most value that you can will really get you ahead, and it's going to get you ahead a lot faster than what you can even imagine. And there's like other pet peeves, like, you know, when someone is kind of like still on their journey, especially if you're trying to network up, right? There's a few things that is like telltale signs that you're broke. And I'm not saying this in like a really offensive sense, honestly. It's not even a bad thing. It's just like, you know how there's the whole difference between like old money versus new money, right? You know, these 3 things that I'm about to show you, which is like, it just screams no money. Like you don't have fuck all, right? Which is number 1, don't flex other people's things. If you're in someone's supercar, if you're doing like, if you're on a yacht that's not yours, you didn't pay shit for it, don't flex it. Don't put it on your story like, I'm on doing this, right? Like, don't do it. You look like a retard unless the other person knows for a fact that you have all of these things and you can access all of these things. Then sure, like, you know, put it on your story, whatever, your boys anyways, right? But if you don't have that as like a easily accessible luxury, don't flex other people's things. I've had it in the past where, not yet with my car, but like, for example, I used to live in a really nice building with a really nice gym and and sometimes I would have friends over, we would use the gym and blah, blah, and they would flex my things, right? Sometimes I would encourage it if it's like a close friend and I know it's really going to benefit like their social presence. But if it's someone I barely know and I see the next thing is that it's on their story, or if it's like a villa that I rented or whatever and it's like on their story flexing, I'm just like, bro, what the fuck? Like, you feel taken advantage of, you know? So number one, don't flex other people's things if you can't afford them. It's just really poor etiquette. Another thing is let others use your things, right? The whole thing is no one likes feeling used. However, you need to flip that coin on its head when it comes to internally. I don't like feeling used, I'll be real, but like I love being used in the sense of, for example, I let others use a lot of things that I have, right? Like my other car is being driven by my videographer right now. Because why? I don't need a second car. Like, what do I need a car for, right? When my friends visit Dubai, they can stay at my place completely free of charge because it was money that I wouldn't have made anyways, right? Or if I'm like out of the country and someone visits Dubai, I'm happily able to give them my keys. Provided obviously I know that they're not gonna like, I trust them enough not to like fuck with my shit, right? Even my watches, sometimes I let my friends wear them. And in general, anything of mine is, I have a pretty like communist approach if I'm being real. Like, just feel free to use whatever, I really don't care, right? Because the more you give and the more you allow people to extract value from you, just by the law of like serendipity, it's gonna come back to you tenfold, I promise. And lastly, don't ask for pictures. If you meet someone really famous, like with most of my friends, if they're famous, I don't even have a picture with them. Why? It sounds weird, bro. Like, especially if you're meeting for the first time or like first couple of times, you asking for a picture with them automatically puts you on a status level that's beneath them, right? And really what it is people don't really want to feel like they're being friends with someone that is like way down on the social hierarchy. It sounds kind of fucked up, but that's just like, it's just facts, right? So don't ask for pictures because it's kind of weird. If I'm being real, like as soon as you ask for a picture, it's kind of like you're idolizing someone, right? And that's never the way to go if you want to strike up real friendship and add someone to your network. The next thing is super important, having social proof. Initially, you're not going to have this, but it will build up over time. And this will come in the form, like the biggest form of social proof nowadays is just who follows you on Instagram. If you hear background noise, it's my cleaners. Excuse them. Who follows you on Instagram is super important, because as soon as someone goes on your profile, or even if you meet someone in real life and then they go on your profile, they see like 5, 6, 10, 15 people that they know already following you, they'll automatically think, okay, you're someone that's trustworthy, you know, you're friends with the same people I am, we're basically in the same circles, right? Guards are gonna be down. However, this will come with time, but how you get there is everyone you meet, when appropriate, again, because you don't want to feel like you're using someone, right? Ask for an Instagram if it's relevant, you know? Referrals, introductions. Another thing, if you want to be introduced to new people, be proactive in introducing other people to the people you're meeting, right? But also you have to be a bit more careful about this. Don't just introduce like randoms to like people that you really value. You want to be introducing people that you think will also add value to the person you're introducing them to. You see what I mean? So for example, right? A lot of my friends who I know are absolute hustlers, but just are like earlier on in their journeys, let's say, I would be more than happy to expose them to some of my friends who are more seniored and more tenured in business, for example, because I know they're hustlers and the people who are more senior need talent, right? So that would be a relevant introduction. Same thing with friends who are really productive but who haven't quite made it yet, right? I would be more than happy to introduce them to some of my friends who are more senior and bring them to the dinners I go to, etc., right? That creates goodwill. Or if I'm friends with two people who are really ahead, I also connect them. Sometimes I even connect my clients with each other because I think, you know, personality-wise, they would be a great fit. And also in terms of the industries they're in, is roughly relatively similar and they're doing similar numbers, right? So I make the intro for them, they become friends, and suddenly I have a new group of friends. You see what I mean? And also, when you make introductions for other people, people are going to be more top of mind in making introductions for you back. Super, super important. So be proactive in introducing others to people if you want the same back. By the way, with this video, I know some of you guys are going to watch this and like try to network with me. Don't like, please, if I post this video and I see people using these tactics, I just won't reply. But anyways, the point is, you can use this with a lot of people, and over, let's say 6 to 12 months, you can really start growing your network, you know? And then another thing is follow-ups, right? Follow-up messages really go a long way. Like with my closest friends, or if like there's someone in my network that I really like and I want to be better friends with them and just like be around them a bit more, I would just call them out of the blue. Right? Just be like, yo, just want to check in on you, how you're doing, blah, blah. And believe me, in this day and age, it really goes a long way, bro. Like checking in on how someone is doing, especially if their business happens to be like down that specific month, they're going to remember you for that shit, right? And again, don't do this in a fake way, because I know like with these systems and these like rules that I'm giving you guys, it can feel like it's very blueprinted, templatized, and systemized, and very like schemy, right? Or like it's very cunning what I'm doing. But the point is, it needs to stem from like a genuine place in your heart. So for example, when I call someone, I genuinely am curious on what they're doing. I don't just call them for the sake of to like check a box, essentially, right? I call them because I'm genuinely curious about what they're doing. And if you can develop that curiosity, you're gonna do super well when it comes to networking. Which kind of brings me on to the next point, right? About like being genuine. It's super important that you actually be yourself around people and be genuine with the people you're interacting with, because people who have built big companies, or people who are just like very used to dealing with people, which most of the time is people in business, right? We can kind of like spot someone's intentions from a mile away, or even if we're not able to see their intentions like transparently, we can kind of like sense the red flags as like a third sense, and we just try to avoid those people entirely. And that comes in the form of you not really being authentically yourself. And you might feel a bit uncomfortable and hear the things like, you know, like fake it till you make it, whatever, whatever. But I promise you, you know, people who are ahead, we understand that people are on their journeys, you know, and we're more than happy to help, provided you're being genuine. The type of motherfuckers that I hate the most are people who are like trying to flex lifestyle and shit, but actually don't even have a business. Those people, I will not piss on them if they were set on fire. Like, I need to avoid them at all costs. Not only do they piss me off, but also I just feel like, you know, if they portray a different life on social media, what else are they lying about? You see what I mean? You know? Now, I get you might find it hard to be just like yourself with people, because you might judge them or have like limiting beliefs around, let's say, rich people, for example, right? The biggest thing that you can do to be genuine with someone is to actually try to understand them and not judge them. So what do I mean by that? Well, you see how like, just like how rich people have preconceived notions about poor people also have preconceived notions about rich people, right? So what do rich people think about poor people? It's like, oh, poor people are lazy, poor people are unintelligent, they're unmotivated, blah, 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 like a bunch of these like negative connotations, which, I'll be honest, it's not true. It's true for a lot of cases, but it's not true most of the sometimes, right? So for example, I can say that, yes, there's a lot of lazy motherfuckers in the world, but I happen not to be one of them. And that's it, you know? However, if you look at my socioeconomic background growing up, you would assume that I was a lazy motherfucker, right? But it just wasn't the case. And there are rare exceptions. So try not to judge people and try to really understand people from their perspective. Like, I have a lot of friends, let's say, who are very eclectic individuals, and on the surface, you can label them addict, workaholic, or whatever. Like, you can describe them in pretty negative ways, or they might say something that is just completely outlandish, or like, I don't know, just do something that seems really socially tone deaf. But I still appreciate it, because I realize actually, he's probably just going through some hardship right now, you know? And if you really understand people and if you really are able to empathize with people, especially those that are ahead of you, you'll find that you're gonna start to adopt their mindset and their like logic very quickly. So one of the biggest things I can give from personal experience, right, was I used to judge people who sold courses a lot. This was about maybe like, say like 2 years ago. Yeah, about 2 years ago. I judged people who sold courses a lot. I'm like, oh, you guys are gurus, you know, how do you deal with the fact that like 97% of people who buy your courses don't succeed and blah, 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 blah. And then I was able to overcome this by just actually understanding, well, you know, let's pretend that as an average, 1% of the population makes it to the top 1%, right? And the success rate of a course, which I deem success as, let's say, making it to the top 1% of society, for example, right? The failure rate is 97%, but the success rate is 3. So that means if I were to compare it to the control, which is you have a 1% chance of being in the top 1%, you now have 3%. And someone just paid, let's say, $5,000 to triple their odds. I would say that's a pretty fair exchange, right? So I repositioned like the whole courses space, and which is why I'm gonna enter it very soon. I was able to reposition that in my mind, and I realized, oh my God, I've just been incredibly ignorant. It was my own limiting belief that was preventing me from growing, for example, right? Another thing is, I used to judge these people as well, and I'm just like, oh, but you don't actually do the business model that you're preaching. And then I realized to myself, I'm like, I'm doing the business model that I'm gonna be preaching. It's doing well. But bro, like if I started selling courses after making like 20K a month with my agency, I'd be a multi-millionaire by now, rather than like a single-digit millionaire. You know what I mean? Like it's so stupid. Like I basically just like shot myself in the foot, claiming like some sanctimonious bullcrap around like morals and ethics. It's insane to me, right? Obviously, I'm a very ethical person, yada yada yada. I hold integrity to like really make that a priority in business, life, whatever. But I now understand the people that just get into selling courses right away, right? Because I'm just like, it's a logical business move. Of course they would do that, right? And that's this whole thing about like not judging people and just keeping yourself an open mind. The second thing that helps you become more of a genuine individual, and this is how you actually network as well, is like feel free to disagree if you actually disagree and if you actually don't understand. Because I can tell you there's absolutely nothing worse than having someone who's saying yes to you all the time. Like, oh yeah, that's a sick idea, bro. Like if you disagree, just genuinely give your opinion. You know, of course, if you agree, big them up, give people their flowers, compliment them, right? But if you disagree, actually disagree as well. Like, I don't care if the person you're disagreeing with or raising an objection to is like Elon Musk or something. Like, you should express your opinion. Because if someone can't take that, like if you disagree with someone and their ego gets, like they get super butthurt and they start shouting at you or whatever, it's not someone that you want to associate with anyways. I don't care how successful they are. And then other stuff around being genuine is like, don't give fake compliments. Like I only give genuine compliments when I really mean it. So for example, Dior smelled nice today, right? And I was like, oh, bro, you know, you actually smell quite nice today. When normally I'm telling him to take a shower, you know? Today, he came in, perfume on, everything. I was like, bro, smelling fresh, you know what I mean? Like, genuine compliments really make people's day. But only say it if you mean it, because if you start saying compliments that you don't actually mean, it's gonna come back to bite you. Another thing is, you need to understand that, like, intentions matter way more than the outcome itself. In the sense that, like, for example, if you were trying to do something good for someone, but you fuck it up, the intention is red. So, for example, when I make a racist joke at my friend, right? And let's say he takes it the wrong way, which never happens, because, like, you know, we're just boys like that, you know? But if he takes it the wrong way, he knows that my intention wasn't actually to hurt his feelings, you know? So, actually, it's a lot more easily forgivable. Whereas, if I call someone like a racial slur, like Dior, when second day this guy worked for me, he just like, he called me a chink basically. And I was like, what? But it was all fun and games. But anyways, like, I know that their intention is not necessarily to offend me. It's just like, you know, for banter, right? So I'm able to get over it really quickly. Same thing in team, right? If one of my employees fucks something up for a client, I know that they try their best. And as long as I know that, I'm pretty cool with it. Now, if I know that they did it out of laziness or whatever, out the door, right? So intentions actually matter a lot more than the outcome. So make sure to be genuine in your actions. If your intention is good, most of the time it's gonna go well. The next thing is like, actually you need to be okay with being used. And this goes back to the whole point of nobody likes feeling used. You need to be okay with being used. If you wanna make friends and broaden out your network and just grow like social proof exponentially, right? You're gonna be used along the way. Absolutely, you're gonna be screwed over. People are gonna borrow money from you and never return it to you. People are gonna talk shit about you behind your back. At some point, you're probably gonna advise someone to do something in their business to improve it, for example, and then they come back and just snake you by copying your business or taking your team members, trying to steal your clients. Like, it's gonna happen. You are gonna get used, and just make peace with it, right? Because if you don't make peace with it, and if you get salty about it, you might try to take revenge, and I promise you, that's gonna fuck your reputation like so badly, even if the other person is in the fault. Just let it go, right? Don't try to get even. You're gonna be used along the way. Be okay with it. In fact, be happy with it, because if you're being used, that means at least you're useful. You know what I mean? Like, it's a bit of a backwards justification, but like whenever I actually get used, I'm like, actually, you know what? I could provide something positive for that individual. Yeah, they're not gonna pay me back, but I know that someone's out there is gonna pay me back once I do something nice for them, right? And it's gonna happen. So don't try to get even. Be happy about people using you. And lastly, if you actually want to grow a tight circle of high-level individuals, you actually need to understand who your core circle is. So for example, how you interact with your executive team, like I talk in team members a lot because, you know, I have a decently sized company at this point, but like your executive team and your leadership team, the culture around that is going to be very different than the culture around your regular employees, right? Like the newcomers, the juniors. Just like how with your closest friends, like your boys from high school, for example, right? The banter you have with them is not the same type of banter that you can bring to the workplace, for example. So you really need to understand on a professional level who's your executive team versus who's your wider team. So even right now, if you're an employee, for example, you need to understand who is the people that you can banter with. So for example, if you're working in retail, right? You normally have that friend or a couple of friends that are your colleagues that are at the same level as you, and it's kind of like, it feels sometimes a bit like you against the managers, right? Because the managers are on the executive team and you guys are on the junior team. So the culture is a bit different, and how you interact with both parties are going to be very different, right? And then you need to also understand, and this is the biggest thing about being okay with being used, you need to understand who your long-term and short-term friends are. When I say long-term and short-term, what I really mean is like, your long-term friends are friends that you've been with for a couple years, and they have really good track record of being reciprocating favors, etc., and like being good to each other. Like, it's a very mutually benefiting relationship, right? For those friends, just like, don't even keep track. Keeping track is like one of the worst things that you can do. You know, like, oh, I got the bill this time though, so you should get it next time. Like, it's just long, right? Just trust that if they're a long-term friend for you, you're gonna be even at some stage, plus minus maybe 10%. So the thing is, with long-term friends, so for example, the other, like a couple of months ago, one of my friends calls me at midnight. He's in Romania, right? And he was like, yo bro, this is gonna sound super weird, but do you have crypto? And I go, yeah, I do. Can you send me 25K worth of crypto to this address? And I need it like now. Because basically, long story short, he was gonna do a podcast with Tate, right? And Tate now charges 50K. Long story short, I needed to pay half of it because their Coinbase account got blocked, right? And I was like, all right, bet. No contract, no nothing. It was literally just like I didn't even record it over text. It was pretty stupid, but like, I just knew that he was gonna get me back, right? So with long-term friends, being used like that, perfectly fine, not a problem. Obviously, he paid me back, etc., because I knew he was good for it as well. But the second point to that is with short-term friends, you need to learn how to draw boundaries. Paying for a dinner is not that deep. Getting used for a connection isn't that deep. Getting used for small things is not that deep. However, you need to set a boundary. An example of this is recently one of my, I guess like clients, who I'm also kind of friends with, right? Asked us to do something that would mean like a ton more work, right? Without extra pay. And normally, if this was like a really close friend of mine and like we've been working for at least a year and a half and he's brought me a ton of new business, I've made him a bunch of money, I just say yes, like more than happy to, because like I believe in long-term relationships, right? But because this client specifically, I had only met fairly recently and we don't really have that much of a business track record together, I said no, because there needs to be a line drawn somewhere, right? So with your short-term friends, you need to understand what is that boundary for you. And normally it's just what you're really comfortable with. Because could my team have done it? Yes. Could I have just like given it to him for free? Yes. Would I have incurred extra costs? Of course, but it's not like an astronomical amount, right? But it's like, that's me demonstrating that you need to draw the boundaries sometimes. So yeah, if you understand all of those things, you start putting them into practice, be genuine with people. And also, obviously, I think this goes without saying, like, you gotta be able to be talkative, make conversation, blah, blah. Like, this guide to networking is not for like absolute retards with like crippling social anxiety, because if that's you, I feel bad for you, but like, this is not the video to help you. But essentially, if you do all of those things, and if you're constantly building and trying to grow yourself as well, you're gonna have some very, very high level friends in the very near future. So hope you guys enjoyed this, and more videos coming soon. Join the mailing list, by the way, it's completely free. I give out free value on that. See you in the next one.